afternoon, everyone. As Pablo said, I'm Khushboo Balwani. I'm a WeShare connector and a freelance strategic designer. It's a pleasure to be here in this beautiful island of Tenerife, and I'm really looking forward to exploring more of it after the conference. It's been really inspiring the last few days to see how many ideas and collaborations have taken place in order to make Tenerife a sharing island. I believe a conference like this one marks an important step towards making this happen. Hence, I would like to thank the team of Tenerife Colaborativa for putting this up so well. Today, I want to talk about Sharing Cities book project I'm part of. But before that, let me give you a little background. In the last 2 years, I've been working in the field of sharing cities, mainly through the WeShare project called Territories. Territories is an international program aimed at public administrations that are seeking to implement and foster collaborative practices at a local level. Originally intended to help public administrations, its versatile methodology has enabled various public, civic, and private actors to develop imaginative futures and provide them with opportunities for innovative sharing thinking in their environment. Yesterday with Thomas, Ankil, and myself, we ran the workshop on WeShare Territories Toolkit that originally forms part of the Territories program. At several occasions, the Territories team felt the need for referring to a resource that gave an overview of the topic sharing cities or gave an inspiration. Such a vital resource is about to see the light of the day. The organization's Shareable is currently working on a Sharing Cities book. For those who are not aware, Shareable is a US-based nonprofit news action and a connection hub for the sharing transformation. I joined the team of Sharing City book last January, and I'm writing the food and work chapters. So I'm happy to share with you today my experience on this collaborative book publishing. Here's how the book is structured. It contains 11 core chapters, which I'll talk in a little while. Each chapter starts with a vision. The vision also explores major challenges and controversies of that topic, and later give a glimpse how each topic is dealt within a sharing city. Then we have case studies. There are 8 to 10 case studies for each chapter. We have chosen case studies that describe social innovations, new ways people organize themselves to solve problems, or non-mainstream solutions, well-established practices that are not used or adopted but should be. These are the examples where people joined in a venture, in a network, in a group, in community, neighborhood, or government to solve the problem together in a unique or unconventional way. All the cases are about how people work together to solve urban problems. They are written in a short, concise, and a very provocative way. We have covered from small and large case studies, both in developed and developing countries, bottom-up and top-down cases. Followed by visions and cases, the book contains model policies. The purpose of a model policy is to encourage the diffusion of that policy to other authorities. The policies in the book are either implemented laws and regulations or proposals put forward by advocacy organizations, or strategic plans proposed by different cities. Each policy talks about sharing, new ways of working, new economic systems. The core value of the book project has been collaboration, from the book proposal to the book licensing to distribution. There is a team of 20 persons from around the world that, as a first step, decided the scope of the book. Later in the process, we crowdsourced ideas and suggestions and hence brought in a number of additional contributors. The book provided me with a valuable learning in peer production and self-publishing. We hope this can help the Sharing Cities movement take to the next level. Sharing Cities, Activating the Urban Commons will be published early next year. But before we dive into sharing cities, let's bring our attention to the words sharing and cities. Why are we talking about sharing today or collaboration today? Is it because of the unstable economy or depletion of natural resources? Or is it the technological disruption that has opened up multiple new alternatives to us? I think there isn't any single answer to this. Recently, while watching one of the Kurzgesagt videos, I discovered something really fascinating. Kurzgesagt is a German word for in a nutshell and is an online platform that talks about science. The video is called What Happened Before History? Human Origins. And so let's go back a little in time, not 10, 20, 100,000, but 50,000 years ago. This is where we can still trace the similarities between our ancestors and us. That is the modern human. This age is known for its explosion in innovation. During this time, humans developed a multi-purpose brain. That means they were able to communicate effectively. And this is really fascinating if you think that 50,000 years ago, our ancestors were just one animal species among many. However, thanks to the multi-purpose brain development, our ancestors were able to collaborate with their fellows. And this is what marked us different from the other creatures on the earth. Not our weak bodies and inferior senses, but the ability to collaborate flexibly and take care of our communities. Unfortunately, we have come so far in innovation that we completely forgot about our first differential nature, that is the ability to collaborate. Talking about cities, the research says by 2030, in 15 years from now, 75% of the world population will be living in cities. We can already see a drastic increase in the number of megacities. In 1950, we had 32, and today we have 33 of them. This rapid urbanization is scary, especially when we read what it is combined with. The tragic case of Gurgaon in India, the city that failed its citizens in providing basic necessities in the process of becoming a smart city. It is an example of a city that is unplanned or has an inadequate management of urban expansion that has heightened the exposure to the risk of natural hazards, in this case, floods. Each year, an estimated 6.5 million deaths are linked to air pollution, and this number is set to rise significantly in the coming decades. As more and more people are moving to cities, they have traffic management problems, and as a result, pollution in cities has increased. Unemployment in cities is a grim problem. It has a detrimental effect on the individuals involved. It deteriorates the human capital. It affects people's mental and physical well-being. Over the time, statistics suggest people may also drop out of the workforce altogether. Again, the case in India. Unfortunately, we are like hub of wicked problems. What happens when a city is run by private corporations? If you come to Gurgaon in India, you will see high-rise buildings, skyscrapers, a lot of technological companies, but the dwellers don't have access to basic water, electricity, or sewage system. And so I can go on with multiple other examples of what the cities and its problems are. So we see cities are striving to become smart, hyper-connected, and global. But in this process, a great number of people is left behind. People who don't use the art of technology device such as smartphones, or people who simply don't have access to basic necessities. So crowded are our cities and yet so lonely. Rapid urbanization is giving rise to glorification of individualism. Sole traders, self-starters, men and women, lone rangers, we can go on. Social isolation has become a potent reason for early death, as is smoking cigarettes or obesity. Thirdly, our civic responsibility. Our attitudes and actions towards society and environment is getting lost in the fast race of urban life. Of course, that is all aggregated with poor city governance and poor management of cities, which unfortunately is falling in the hands of private corporations. Inequality, poverty, and social isolation are weakening the fabric of our cities. And yet, by 2030, we'll see 75% of the world population living in these weak, fragile cities. Let's for a moment imagine a different future. And imagine the city in 2030 can look like this. A city where everyone's needs are met because people simply choose to share. Where everyone can create meaningful livelihoods. Where fresh local food is available to all. Where affordable housing and shared transportation are abundant. Where the poor are lifted up, the middle class is strengthened, and the rich are respected because they all work for the common good. This has been the dream of Shareable, the organization behind the book that I'm presenting today. The vision was formed 4 years ago when they first kicked off the Sharing Cities movement. You may think it's a very utopian or an ambitious vision, but yet it's very grounded. Many of these scenarios have already been implemented, from Todmorden in the UK to Ahmedabad in India. People have found ways to bring sharing cities scenarios into life. I'll explain these examples in a little while. Now, with the Sharing Cities book, we aim to provide a commons-based vision of sharing, best sharing city model policies, and projects around the world. The work on the book started last February and is currently at its last stage. Let me give you all a glimpse of the book, the resume of the 2 chapters I contributed in. The first chapter, Work in Sharing City, that I co-authored with Darren Sharp from Australia. The mainstream economics argues today that low wages and tax cut for large corporations are the best way to attract investment and drive job growth in cities. This unsustainable model is becoming more and more popular in many cities and gives corporations a tremendous power. But the chapter of Work in Sharing City has a different story to tell. A story of a model where entrepreneurs, communities, and cities make innovative solutions to activate local economy and drive sustainable job creation. And this happens through worker-owned cooperatives, startup collectives, open value networks, and responsible sharing-based organizations. Let's see some of the examples. My first and most favorite case study is on Inspiral, a New Zealand-based decentralized entrepreneurial collective that has created its own internal economy. In this very conference, we had the opportunity of listening to Jesse Cates' presentation on this organization, and at several moments we have heard about the name of Inspiral. So Inspiral members collaboratively decide which projects to support financially. They demonstrate the capacity of digital workers to maintain good livelihoods. And they collaborate on a shared value creation. By reinvesting a part of our money, what they have gained from the projects back into the collective, and therefore they create a work-based commons. Another example is Fab Labs. Fab Labs is fostering worldwide a new collaborative way of working, peer production, and local micro-manufacturing by leveraging on internationally distributed network. This photo is from Vigyan Ashram, a Fab Lab in India, who is working since 2002 to develop a number of innovative solutions for crucial local problems. On the policies, a great example is the city of Seoul. The Seoul Metropolitan Government launched the Sharing City Seoul program to set the right incentives for the local sharing-based startups and to raise awareness among the people, the public trust, to use these services. According to the mayor of Seoul, Park Won-soon, citizens are the mayor since they foster the collective governance of a city, a strategy based on communication and collaboration with citizens. In the United States, New York City has invested over $3 million into local cooperative sectors as a means to reduce poverty and income inequality by supporting worker-owned cooperatives under the policy called Worker Cooperative Business Development Initiative, more popularly known as WCBDI. A common pattern among these examples and many other profiled in work in Sharing City demonstrate that workers, enterprises, and cities can work together to increase prosperity, address inequality, and accelerate opportunities for distributive value creation, and thus develop an equitable future. Moving to the next chapter of the book, The Food in Sharing City. Writing the food chapter was a very inspiring journey for me. Not only I learned about bottom-up community projects, but I noticed a great difference in my personal habits, attitudes, and thinking. Accessing fresh local food and sharing it with others can contribute immensely to our well-being, health, and quality of life. I think this is a priority every city should put on its agenda. The food cases in Sharing City look like this. 10 years ago, a woman in a small town called Todmorden, at the back end of a Yorkshire valley in the north of England, dug up her rose garden. She planted vegetables, knocked down the garden wall, and put up a sign saying, "Help yourself." This simple action turned into a movement, and soon the dwellers of Todmorden cultivated the whole town with edible herbs, fruits, and vegetables. And the movement didn't stop there. There are now 100 incredible edible groups in France, more than 300 in the UK, and more are popping up all the time from Montreal to Mali. Seva Cafe. Seva Cafe in India started in 2007 with the idea to test peer-to-peer generosity. The concept was simple. Every day, 7 to 8 volunteers will get together, cook food, welcome guests, and serve them the delicious food. After eating, the guest receives a bill that reads 0, with the footnote, "Your meal was a gift from someone who came before you. To keep the chain of gifts alive, we invite you to pay it forward for those who dine after you. Paying is not compulsory." Today, Seva Cafe runs 7 days a week and serves 60 guests daily. And the concept is replicated in many other cities in India, in the US, and in Europe. Most of the time, the school canteens and public cafeterias are handled by profit-oriented private companies, which cut cost by using cheap ingredients and pay no attention to where the food comes from. The city of Bra in Italy decided to take over the running of the cafeteria and to improve its standards with attention to the whole commodity chain and to the concerns of slow food. As a result, the school canteens, old age homes, and public cafeterias in Bra now consume fresh, organic, and local food. And in return, this broadens the market of local producers. In Brazil, under the policy framework of Belo Horizonte, pioneering food and nutrition security policy, they run a program called People's Restaurant. Currently, there are 4 People's Restaurants and 1 canteen located in different areas of the city, and they are maintained by the municipality of Belo Horizonte. At People's Restaurant, lunch is made with the fresh local produce, and it costs less than $1. Also, the registered homeless people receive the meals for free. As a result, local nutritious food is available to everyone, and farmers have enough opportunities to sell their food. The story of food in Sharing City book is a romantic one, where neighbors work together in community gardens, where food travels shorter distances, where children are reconnected to the earth, and where they know where the food comes from. Many of them also grow it, where strangers are now connected over good food, and where no one feels isolated. The other chapters of the Sharing Cities book include housing, mobility, land, energy, waste, water, information and communication technology, finance, and governance. The choice of these chapters was influenced by votes or requested by the visioning statements and stakeholder interviews. Each of the core chapter represents an urban service that meets a human need. Now going back to the beautiful dream of shareable, it doesn't sound very utopian, does it? We can grasp in this book the visions and practices that already exist in different parts of the world. What is missing is that there's no single city where all the practices are brought together. Because when brought together, these practices can make city a sharing city. We can then anticipate the future challenges of cities despite the rapid urbanization. What could one city learn from the experience of another? Well, most cities function in a similar way. People converge and struggle in their everyday lives, and the problems are often the same. That means a solution that works in one city is likely to be adopted in another city. For example, a community garden project that has started in Jerusalem might also thrive in Bangalore. However, every city will have to craft its unique strategy for sharing city that can keep the local character and culture alive. The concept of sharing cities is getting considerable attention with grassroots groups and city governments around the world. Seoul, Amsterdam, London, and Milan are just 4 examples. While these examples share commonalities, the sharing city concept is not well defined. Without a definition or a guidance, the sharing city movement the sharing city movement could die or be dominated by a single stakeholder group, or make existing problems worse. This was a big push to produce the Sharing Cities book. The book offers an entry point for the readers to learn about solutions and find out more information on how to replicate them. However, the book marks just the beginning to open source ideas so that communities can learn and exchange knowledge and take it further. I think it only covers a small part of an abundant knowledge out there. We need to harness this knowledge and share it. We have to take up the civic ownership, and policymakers have to choose the right direction so that by 2030, the cities where 75% of the world population will be living in would follow the model of sharing cities, a place where social capital and prosperity are at their highest. Thank you.